Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I'd like to welcome you all today for joining His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj's daily online class. Thank you all for joining. My humble obeisances to you all. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Maharaj. My
Mhm.
humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Haribo.
Maharaj, we
Glory
shall,
to
Hare,
Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Glory to Prabhupada.
Maharaj, we shall be continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, second, first, and I will just share the screen in a minute.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nabhyam stiram hridadiropyathasman Udanagatorasitam nayan munihi. Utonusadaya diha manasi swatalumulam shanakarnayeta. Translation: the meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel to the heart, and there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. He should search out the proper places with intelligence. Purport: there are 6 circles of the movement of the life air, and the intelligent bhakti yogi should search out these places with intelligence and in a meditative mood. Among these mentioned above is the Swadhisthana chakra, or the powerhouse of the life air. And above this, just below the abdomen and navel, is the Manipuraka chakra. When upper space is further searched out in the heart, one reaches the Anahata chakra, and further up, when the life air is placed at the root of the palate, one reaches the Visuddhi chakra. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharine Nirvasesa Sunyavadi Paschatya De Satarine Panchakalpa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Pevacha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Here is describing the yoga system, moving the life air from the very lowest chakra, or the powerhouse, and then up through the different circles of chakras until it reaches the top of the head. And then the yogi can project himself to the desired destination by this very careful and meditative form of moving the life airs through the different energy spots without in the body, and keeping one's mind fixed on the goal. Here mentions Bhakti Yoga, so the Bhakti Yoga will fix his mind on Krishna. And this is a bona fide process that was practiced thousands of years ago. But Krishna doesn't recommend that we practice it in this particular age because it's very difficult to perform. But it is possible by proper diet, meditation, environmental support, and a determined effort, focusing one's mind and energy continuously throughout the day and night. It's not something you just do when you stop. It's something you have to continue until you reach the goal, which is here. It says the Visuddhi chakra. Okay, so this is to help us to get a little understanding of the yoga process and the great saints who practiced this process successfully thousands of years ago. And there are these even there are yogis even today who exist in the Himalayas that can perform this process, but they're very rare and you don't see them. They don't come out. They stay in the Himalayas, in their caves or in the secluded areas, and simply focus their meditation. Sometimes they come for the Kumbh Mela when there is more than 6 to 10 million people gathering for a holy bath. And you'll see such persons that are like 250, 300 years old. They come and just to take part in this holy bath of Kumbh Mela. But other than that, mm, even all of them don't come. Some of them do. It's rare that they leave their secluded area, and then they want to just eventually reach the perfectional stage through this process, and so they devote their time and intelligence to it. Okay, next verse. Tasman bhuvan antaram unete yata diruda sapta yantano napekshaha stiva muhurtandam akunta dristir nirvidya murdan visvajet param gataha. Thereafter, the bhakti yogi should push the life air up between the eyebrows, then blocking the 7 outlets of the air, he should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely freed from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral whole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. Purport. The process of giving up all material connections and returning back home, back to God, the Supreme, is recommended here. The condition is that one should be completely free from desire for material enjoyment. The different grades of material enjoyments in respect to durations of life and sense gratification. There are different grades of material enjoyments in respect to duration of life and sensual gratification. The highest plane of sensual enjoyment for the longest period of time is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:20. After all are but material enjoyments, and one should be thoroughly convinced that he has no need for such a long duration of life. Even in the Brahma planet, he must return back home, back to God, and must be attracted to any amount of material facilities. In the Bhagavad Gita 259, it is said that this sort of material detachment is possible when one is acquainted with the supreme association of life. Param drisva nivartante. One cannot be freed from material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. Yeah, and so that statement is very powerful. One cannot be freed from material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. There's a prerequisite for becoming free from material attraction. One may be theoretically free from material attraction, but one has to be completely cleansed of that attraction through the process of understanding the nature of spiritual life. Okay, the propaganda by a certain class of impersonalists can't see beyond that word that's blocked. Okay. Okay, the propaganda by a certain class of impersonalists that spiritual life is void of all varieties is dangerous propaganda to mislead the living beings to becoming more and more attracted by material enjoyment. See, this is a very important statement. They say that the spiritual life is somewhat void of varieties, and therefore variety is actually life itself. So, because there's variety in the material world, there's also varieties in the spiritual world. The material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. What exists in the spiritual world, at least most of it, not all of it, is reflected in the material world. But the reflection is not the same as the original. No one can enjoy in the reflection. And they say not only is there no varieties, but they say because there is no varieties, then what is the use of spiritual attainment? Because variety is ultimately the spice of life. So many of these yogis, they fall down again to take up material activities after attaining a certain level of spiritual understanding. As such, continuation, persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot have any conception of the Supreme. They try to stick to the varieties of material enjoyment, although they may flatter themselves as being Brahman realized souls. Such intelligent persons cannot have any conception of the Supreme as mentioned in this verse, and therefore they cannot reach the Supreme. So one has to have an understanding of where you're going. If you're making a trip to go somewhere, you understand what it's like when you get there. You read the maps, you read the travel brochures, you get an idea. You plan out your not only your trip, but you plan out, what it's like when you get there. So unless we know about the Supreme to a certain degree of understanding, cannot be known fully, but enough to inspire us to reach that Supreme. That much knowledge is needed. Otherwise, one cannot. And it says the devotees do have full knowledge of the spiritual world, personality of Godhead, and his transcendental association in unlimited spiritual planets called Vaikuntha Loka. Herein, Akunta Dristi is mentioned. Akunta and Vaikuntha convey the same import. The only one who has his aim fixed upon the spiritual and personal association with God can give up his material connection even while living in the material world. So, yeah, we have to be, to renounce material life is not possible because what are you going to do? Renunciation has to follow accepting something higher. And accepting, unless you know what to accept, then your renunciation is falgun or it's false. It's just a show. And then one will fall back into performing the same activities that they gave up because they cannot understand or reach the higher goal. So now it says here, this Supreme and the Supreme Dham mentioned in the several places in the Gita are one and the same. The Lord and his abode are not different. One who goes to the supreme abode does not return to this material world. This freedom is not possible even by reaching the topmost planet of the material world. The life air passes through 7 openings named 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Generally passes through the mouth at the time of an ordinary man's death. But the yogi, as mentioned above, who controls the life air in his own way, generally releases the life air by puncturing the cerebral hole in the head. There is a hole within the skull, and it has a slight covering over it, and it's easily puncturable by the life air when directed. The yogi therefore blocks up all of the mentioned 7 openings so that the life air will naturally burst forth through the cerebral hole. This is a sure sign of a great devotee leaving the material connection. So here's the perfection of yoga system. As mentioned in the previous verse on how one begins, here it culminates in blocking all other openings. There's those 7 openings: 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. One has to block. Okay, and then there's also, well, the life air can pass through these different things, but that's generally for an ordinary person. But for a yogi, he can direct his life through the cerebral hole. It's called Brahmarudya. Brahmarudya, that's the actual Sanskrit name. And he has to block the 7 holes. And where are the 7 holes? The 7 holes are the 2 ears, the mouth, that's 3, the 2 eyes, that's 5, the 2 nostrils, that's 7, and then the genitals and the anus, because we heard from the previous verse that one needs to block the anus with the heel of their foot, and that starts the process of bringing the life airs to a higher and higher level, like that. So there are 9 holes in the body, and the life air can travel out through. Those who are very sinful, their life air passes through their anus. They're the most sinful people. Those who are common men and practice devotion, generally they pass through the mouth. But generally, a devotee doesn't really put too much emphasis on this process, because chanting of the holy names automatically uplifts the life airs automatically. Chanting the holy name will balance the entire body, all of the energies in the body, so that one can focus the consciousness on the Supreme and simultaneously give up all attachments to the material world. So the chanting of the holy name is the process of perfect meditation in this age, because Krishna's name is Krishna. One who chants purely, we're talking about pure chanting now, then that pure chanting elevates the consciousness where they can direct their consciousness to Krishna at the time of death. First realization is that the holy name of Krishna is Krishna. That is the initial realization of chanting the holy name. As one develops in the chanting and reaches a higher form of realization, then that realization gives the understanding that Krishna's forms, all of his transcendental forms, are non-different than Krishna. As one continues through the process of purification, one gets to a higher stage. All of Krishna's qualities become realized by the devotee. Not all of them, but the ones that are mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami, they become realized by the devotee. And the highest aspect of spiritual meditation is to enter into Krishna's pastimes through the process of chanting the holy name. We get knowledge of Krishna's pastimes from many of the great souls, such as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, specifically Sri Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Jiva Goswami. These were the prominent ones. And they realized, at least Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami, realized that Krishna's pastimes and Krishna are non-different. And when they would write about Krishna's Leelas, they weren't theoretically just thinking about what they had read and redefining it in their own realized way. They were actually seeing the pastime, entering into the pastime. They were personally present in the pastime, either as a performer in the pastime, seeing themselves with Krishna, just like Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari. He is an intimate associate of Srimati Radharani who assists Radharani in preparing herself to meet Krishna. This is the business of the Manjaris, and one of the most elevated of all the Manjari is Rupa Manjari, who appeared in this world as Srila Rupa Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami is also a Manjari that does the same service to Srimati Radharani. He is Rati Manjari. You can read about him in Shiva Ram Maharaj's book, Bilapa Kusumanjali. He's put 3 volumes about Raghunath Das Goswami's prayers to Srimati Radharani and his service to her, and how he was able to enter into, even while he was living in this material world, he would enter into deep meditation and leave his situation, go deep into his service to Krishna within his heart and within his mind. It was a pure meditation on the spiritual world and his relationship with Krishna. So these are the highest levels of God realization, even while still present in this material world. Actually, these persons are not present in the material world, although they may appear to be. Their consciousness is Vaikuntha. Their consciousness is Vrindavan. So, therefore, through the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, we purify our attraction to material life. We develop a distaste for the activities of material life. And then, as that distaste increases, along with the practice of bhakti, centered around chanting of the holy names of the Lord, and associate with and serving Vaishnavas, then we reach higher and higher stages of realization. And there, at one stage, you can meet Krishna in the form of the holy name, and Krishna will talk to you. He can talk to you. I got that question just recently. I think it was on, it was yesterday in a class in the temple. Can we talk to Krishna? The Prabhupada says, you can talk to Krishna, and Krishna will talk to you, but he doesn't talk to just anyone. You have to be qualified. He uses the example, like if you want to talk to the president of the country, who are you? Will he talk to you? Even if you make it. But if you know someone who can get you in to talk to the president, or if you're qualified and the president's interested in talking to you, then you could achieve that. But if you think, well, I can just talk to Krishna, you can talk to him, but can you actually have a dialogue with him? That's another thing. That's what that's what we're saying here. One can have a dialogue with the Supreme Lord like that when they qualify themselves, reaching a certain level of purification in their devotional practice. So this chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the yoga of this age. It's called the Yuga Dharma. Dharma means means for self-realization, and Yuga means the age. So the emphasis is on chanting Krishna's holy name and perfecting one's chanting to the point where one chants purely. Purely means without offense. Purely means with complete absorption. Purely means with complete devotion also. Now, this is the process. And whatever else we perform in devotional service is also supportive of the process of chanting, such as reading and studying Srimad Bhagavatam, as we're doing every day. This awakens our intelligence, sharpens our intelligence, brings us to a greater understanding of the process of bhakti, gives us an understanding of who Krishna is and what does he do, what is his activity, what is his personality. So many aspects to Krishna's existence that also come through the knowledge of the revealed scriptures, such as Srimad Bhagavatam. And taking only Krishna prasadam, that means food that is purified by being offered to the Supreme Lord. If we eat food from outside, we're generally picking up some karma, and we're also causing the mind to become less controllable. The mind will become disturbed more easily when we bring in contaminated things from the outside into our consciousness. That means sights, sounds, and tastes also. One should be diligent to keep one's mind focused on Krishna in any aspect by performing these devotional activities, which center around purification of the heart and chanting of the holy name, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That's why it's called Maha Mantra. It's not just mantra. There are many mantras, but this is Maha Mantra. That mantra, that is the best of all mantras because it's pure. It is only the names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no other terminology found within the mantra. It's just Radha and Krishna, that's all. Or Krishna and his internal energy. And this is the process. And there are many considerations that the scriptures give, which will help us to fortify our practice of devotional service, teach us how to avoid things that will mitigate the effects of our spiritual practice. So there's many things that are there, and this is called anukulena, things to do, and pratikul, things to avoid. These things are very important to know and to practice. But it all centers around chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which is supported by many other activities. Particularly, it's supported by say Vaishnav Seva, associating and serving other Vaishnavas. Okay, you can open it up for discussion, questions, and even if you like, you can give your own realizations in terms of your practice of Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Maharaj. Dear devotees, I'd like to open up for Q&A, as Maharaj stated. A humble request, if you can switch on your cameras to make it more interactive, personal, that would be appreciated. If you are in a situation where you can't turn on your videos and if you can't ask the questions, then you can put your questions in the chat window and I'll happily read it out for you. So we got a question, Maharaj, from Rityana. Mataji. Mataji, can you unmute and ask? Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and humble obeisances to all the gathered devotees. My understanding was that when you leave your body, I mean, like a pure devotee, I mean, like he goes to the form of Krishna in the spiritual world. Like Bhishma Dev went to Partha Sarathi Loka, so the form of the pastimes of Krishna that you're attracted to. But I recently heard that you get to like participate. So if we are attracted to Gaura Leela and pastimes in Goloka Vrindavan, we get to participate in both the pastimes. So I couldn't understand how that is possible.
Well, you understand that Krishna's spiritual planet also has 3 sections to it. One is called Vrindavan. The other one is also pure spiritual atmosphere, and that's where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is performing his pastimes there in the Sankirtan movement. So those who are very much attached to serving and worshiping Lord Chaitanya can also aspire for that part of the spiritual world where they can associate with Lord Chaitanya.
But I was just hearing that we can do that simultaneously. Is that really true that we get multiple spiritual bodies? I wasn't very sure. I couldn't understand it well.
Spiritual bodies are not multiple. You get one, but you can manifest that spiritual body in different ways. Spiritual body is not limited like a material body. Material body is limited because it's what it is. It's made out of matter. Matter is limited. Spirit is unlimited. One can change their spiritual body, but they still have a spiritual body. They can change different forms. That Krishna changes his forms, but he's still Krishna. So the soul in its purified state in the spiritual world can also change its forms.
Okay, I see. So it's like we can also expand in the spiritual world, right? Is that what you mean, or something?
Yeah. I mean, you have to understand the principle. Spirit is not limited. Material is limited. If you apply limitation on spiritual, then you're redefining spiritual in a material way.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. We've got Rasa Vilasini Radha Mataji. If you want to please ask your question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances on your lotus feet. All glories to God, all glories to Guru Maharaj on the assembled devotees. Maharaj, in the purport, like in the last line, this is the sure sign of a great devotee, leaving the material connection. Actually, I am not able to understand, Maharaj. Can you please explain?
What is the question?
In the purport, the last line is there. 2.2.1, 2.2.2.21 purport. In the last line, it is mentioned that this is the sure sign of a great devotees leaving the material connection. It is related to yogic process or something.
Yeah, bhakti yogis. This is a bona fide process that was there in previous ages. Still bhakti, but it was done through the Astanga yoga system. Kapila Dev taught that system in the Satya Yuga. Astanga, asanga, asta means eight principles of practicing yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So this yoga, there's Krishna mentions it in the 6th chapter of Gita, but Srila Prabhupada's purport and Krishna also in a following verse doesn't recommend it in Kali Yuga in this age. It's not recommended because no one can do it. It's too difficult. As I mentioned, there's a few great souls that can do it, but you don't see them. They stay in the Himalayas. They stay in their caves. They stay in secluded holy places. They don't walk around in the cities. You don't find these people there. But there's only a select group that can do that because the requirements are very, very stringent. It's not that you sit there and have a job half the day and the other day, half the day, you perform your yoga. It's not like they're doing that 24 hours a day.
That means they are also a devotee, right, Maharaj?
That's what it says.
Okay.
These are bhakti yogis. Their goal is the supreme personality. As I told you, and as it's explained here, this process is for previous ages, not this age. Bhagavatam is eternal. It's describing different types of processes for purification. This is also bhakti yoga, but not the way it's taught by Lord Chaitanya.
Maharaj, I also have another question. So
You
can I?
want to try? You want to try being a yogi?
No. I can try Bhakti Yoga, that's good.
Yeah, it's easier because in this age, chanting, dancing, taking prasadam, visiting the temple, reading transcendental knowledge, we can do that.
Thank you, Maharaj. Can I ask another question, Maharaj?
Better if you wait until the other questionnaires get finished, and then you can. We'll still come back to you. Don't worry, we won't forget you.
Yes, sure, Maharaj. Thank you,
Thank you,
Maharaj.
Mataji. Dheeraj Prabhu, you're next. If you can go ahead. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to the Gurudev, and all glories to the temple devotees here. Maharaj, you explained about Manjiris and Gopis in the spiritual world. So, what is our identity there in the spiritual world?
What is your identity?
Yeah. Like, we are spirit soul, but like
No,
you explained about.
your identity is Jiva Sarupai Krishna Nityadas, your eternal servant of the Lord. What is your specific identity? That comes in the practice of bhakti yoga in the later stages of bhakti. That's revealed through the process of Raganuga sadhana. So we can be generally in one of the four rasas, Dasya ras, Sakya ras, Madhurya ras, Vatsalya ras. But each soul has its own individual rasa, and there's a process that comes by practicing sadhana in such a way as that you can gradually awaken your realization of who you are in the spiritual world. Like Raghunath Das Goswami, he understood who he was. He was Rati Manjari. And he entered into his pastimes of serving Srimati Radharani in the spiritual world while he was still in the material world. But it became complete only when he left the planet.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is a process that you need to follow. Right now, at your stage of practice, I don't think you should worry about that right now or concern yourself with that right now. Get yourself fixed up, get yourself engaged in a regular service, chant the holy names, and organize your practice where every day you're practicing bhakti according to the principles given to us by Srila Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu. If you do that for an extended period of time, you can gradually move to the higher stages of bhakti. We can't jump up to that stage, nor can we guess who we are in the spiritual world. It's not possible. But it's there. It's you. You just have to uncover it. Bhakti is the uncovering process. Jagadish.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all humble obeisances to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I've got a question for you. If someone dies now, a normal person, what happens to the soul when he goes to another body, or if he goes to Vaikuntha? What's the procedure?
The question is, if a normal person dies,
Yeah.
Where does he go?
What happens? How does the soul goes to another body, or it goes to another planet?
Yeah, well, the thing is, that's called transmigration of the soul. We have two bodies. We have the subtle body and we have the gross body. The gross body is our physical body, made up of earth, water, fire, and ether. And we have a subtle body made of mind, intelligence, and ego. Death means the death of the gross body. Subtle body doesn't die. Subtle body carries the soul according to its desires and activities in that life to its next destination. So the state of consciousness at the time of death projects one to the next body, and that state of consciousness at the time of death is formulated by the activities we perform during our lifetime. So the materialists are performing material activities, and they'll get a body that'll be conducive to continue their desires to fulfill, to enjoy material life. They'll enter another womb of a mother. If they're degraded in their activities, they may get a lower body like a dog or a hog or a cockroach. And if they're a little bit pious, they'll get a human body, but still they'll be in the material world to again try to fulfill their desires. But a devotee is not, doesn't want to fulfill material desires. The devotee wants to serve Krishna. The devotee wants to purify their consciousness. So at the time of death, their consciousness is focused on Krishna or the spiritual world. And that projects them. And then the subtle body is dissolved. Only when all material desires are gone does the subtle body dissipate or disappear. As long as we have material desires, the subtle body will continue to carry us from one life to another. It's a very time-tested and very authorized process. It's all based on reality is consciousness. What is your consciousness? When consciousness projects, consciousness is everything. So become Krishna conscious, and when you die, you'll think of Krishna and go to Krishna. Become family consciousness, and then you'll come back and get another family. Maybe a dog's family, and maybe a cockroach's family, maybe a snake's family. So, whatever your consciousness is, you'll get accordingly.
So, Maharaj, when you die, how long does it take before you get in the next body? What's the time procedure?
It's interesting. I got that question yesterday. For a pure devotee, it's instantaneous. There's no calculated time period that can be mentioned. It's like a flash of lightning. When you leave the body, simultaneously you're in the spiritual world. That's the spirit. That's the pure devotee. Now, according to the level of your purity, you move to your next destination. Those who are sinful, they go to Yamaraj, and Yamaraj gives them a subtle body. Well, they take their subtle body to Yamaraj. He gives them a gross body while they're there, and then they have to undergo punishment for their sinful activities. If you read the 5th canto, the last chapter in the 5th canto, it describes the 27 hells according to different types of sinful activities. So sinful activity, you can't circumvent. You have to pay for it. And so even though they suffer in this life because of sinful activity, their suffering will be even greater once they die. And therefore, according to the time period, depending on how sinful they are, as is explained, the more sinful they are, the more they suffer, and the longer it takes for them to get their next body. So it can take up to a month or even longer for another body to come to that soul after they undergo their suffering. Suffering is purification. They're getting purified from all of their sinful activities through the process of suffering for them. So time period is all relative to the level of one's consciousness.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Very scientific. Even if you read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it also describes that also, how the souls go to a different body according to the level of their material contamination. So even that's there in other scriptures, such as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, I know for sure. And of course, it's there in Rupa Goswami's explanation. And it's also there in the Bhagavatam. Okay, we got Sri Devi. She's lined up.
Yes, we got Sridevi Mataji and then Vrajmandal Prabhu and then Manas Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji. Please go ahead and ask.
Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, as you were describing about, the different yogis, they're 200 years old, 300 years old, and even the other yogis, the impersonalists, jnanis, and so on, one question came to my mind. What if a bhakti yogi, as he advances, gets caught up in mystic siddhis or gets caught up in jnana? Is there a possibility that he will go astray and be misled from the path of bhakti?
Well, that Bhakti Vinod Thakur mentions that's one of the anarthas. It's an anartha by pious activities, which can cause one to be influenced by the desire for mystic power. So yogis get trapped in that because mystic power means you can do magic with the material energy. Like yogis, they can take a bath in one place and then they can surface 1,000 miles away from where they took the bath. They do that every day. They can go to Hardwar and take a bath and then come up in Vrindavan. So, I mean, they can walk on water, they can fly through the air, they can go through keyholes, they can become invisible. And so many. If you read the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna himself speaks to Uddhava, the different types of mystic cities. There's 18 mystic cities, there's 8 primary ones, and there's 10 secondary ones. But as Krishna explains each one, he rejects them as being a desirable gold. He just gives the explanation for the sake of explaining them, but he doesn't recommend that one aspire for these. It's in the 11th canto. 2 chapters, actually. There's 2 chapters devoted to mystic cities. So, yeah, even devotees, when they practice Krishna consciousness, they get powerful. Krishna consciousness can give you great power. And if you don't know how to use it, you might start using it for your own selfish interest. If a devotee is always humble, depends on the Lord for everything, even though they are very powerful, extremely powerful. The devotee carries the power of Krishna with them, but they don't use it other than for serving the Lord when it's required.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, but the yogis, they get enamored by these things. Raj Mandala, Jai. Welcome back.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble, sincere obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, and all glories to all the Vaishnavas present, my Dandavats. I just wanted to say it's an interesting class, and I could only think of my father in this topic, and some of the Vaishnavas, their questions is very relevant. But your point was very profound that some yogis practice to no end to leave on top of their head. But we don't need to do that. We just need to practice bhakti yoga, Harinam Sankirtan, and just follow Mahaprabhu's teachings and lessons. And to some of the devotees present, my father did just that. He was very, very sweet soul, actually, my father. And he was a very simple man. And he just chanted his rounds. He did his service. He ate loads of prasadam because he loved prasadam so much. And he kept his bhakti very simple. And that's all he did. And as you just mentioned, Guru Maharaj, me, my brother, my sister, and mother, we did notice a certain power emanating from him. We could see it. You could clearly see it, just his demeanor. He was very poised, and there was a certain power he had, but he just kept steady fast and just simplified his life. As he got older, he became more simpler. He just, and even with us, the last couple of years, there was an element of detachment from us, and his journey back home was incredible. And still today, we're all scratching our heads. How did he do it? What was his, how did he actually do it? But he left some instructions for us. And he said, keep your life simple, keep Krishna consciousness simple, chant every day, eat prasadam every day, and do your service. And above all, never, ever offend the devotees. That was it. And so I hope that answers some questions to some of the Vaishnavas, and the answers that the pathway is there. Should we choose it? And how to do it is just simplify. Chant your rounds sincerely.
Right, yeah. And Krishna arranged for him to leave the world in Vrindavan, which is
Correct.
not so easy attainable, even by great devotees, to leave the world in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And he didn't plan it either.
No.
He just came to Vrindavan, and then Krishna decided to take him when he was in Vrindavan. It was quite amazing. And I used to eat prasadam with him, so I know we shared that service together.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. There are some pictures of both of you.
Yeah, he was really, yeah, like you say, it was really simple.
So humble, so humble. Whenever I would say, Papa, you are really great, he would say, we are not worth all these words. He would just be so simple and so humble. And as Prabhu said, he was actually very exalted in his realizations, and in his serenity and his simplicity, he was exemplary. All glories to your father, Prabhu. My humble obeisances.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mataji.
I can tell you, let me see. Let me just get back with you in a second here. I'll be right back. I'm not good at leaving. I'm not good at getting here. I want to speak of leaving. I don't know how to, okay. I'm getting close to leaving here. All right, let me just bring up one thing here. Oops, I left and I came back. How did I do that? When it comes to computers, I need an assistant every moment. Okay, let's see. I just want to bring in, let's see, one point about your father that I felt that I have here. Should take me a second once I can get out of this Zoom call. Usually I can't stay in the Zoom call, but now I can't get out of it. Okay.
Guru Maharaj, Srimati asked you to press the escape button.
All right, I'm out. Don't worry, I'm okay. I did it. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, we're getting closer. Let's see. Yes. Yeah, Rajanath. He left on October 11th, 2017. Correct?
Correct, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah. And he was born on October 11th, October 18th, 1948.
Correct.
Yeah. I just wanted to get that date of his disappearance on October 11th. I remember I went on, where did I go? I was in Buckland Hall for a retreat. And I was just in my room, and Johnny Kinath was there also. And he knew before I did of your father's departure, but he didn't tell me because he knew he didn't know how to break the news to me in such a way that it wouldn't be so, heart-rending. But somehow or other, he found some sweet way to break it. I can remember how, let me see exactly how he did it. He prepped me first. He said, "There's something I need to tell you, and I know it's not going to be very pleasant to hear, so I won't tell you unless you ask me to tell you." So, of course, that was all I needed to. So I said, "All right, well, I guess I'll find out sooner or later, but if I find out from you, it'll be more pleasant."
How sweet.
Yeah, it was
Janki
sweet.
Nath Prabhu, he was always very sweet and very also a very exalted devotee who
Yeah,
made
very
it back home.
Yeah,
There's
he
a
was.
similarity of simplicity if we look at that as a whole.
Yeah,
From my observation, there's a similarity of simplicity and almost childlike nature.
it was very childlike.
Yeah, he was. And it's an interesting point. I think one of the devotees earlier on said, what's the duration in the soul pass and passing through or whatever? But when my father passed away, my mom told me this, when he left, the moment he left his body, um, he was in sedation. So he was on an oxygen mask and he was in sedation. And he pulled his mask off. And when you're in a sedative situation, you can't move because you're out cold. You can only be drawn back by medication, then you awake. But he awoke, took his mask off, put his hands together, took a deep breath, and smiled, and then took his last breath. So that smile was an indication that he had seen a personality or something wonderful.
That's special mercy. To be able to come back to that consciousness in that situation is very special. Krishna arranged that so he could leave in a conscious state.
Oh, yes, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, that's special.
His hands remained like this. When we went to see him, he was still like this.
Mm-hmm.
His hands stuck together like that. They didn't move. That was it. So it was instantaneous, as you said, Guru Maharaj.
Good. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. We've got 4 hands raised and 1 question in the chat window, Maharaj. So shall we
See,
ask questions?
I can't see any hands raised. Maybe I'm just not in the. Let me see. Where am I? Okay. Who's raising their hands now?
Manas Prabhu, Amritana Mataji, Gaurangi Priya Mataji, Sridevi Mataji, and then one question in the chat window by Scarlett Mataji.
Okay. Who's next? You choose the next person.
Manas Prabhu, please go ahead and ask a question.
Okay, now I can see everybody.
Thank you. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all the simple devotees here. So Guru Maharaj, this is something probably basic, very fundamental that I have got in my head while you were describing about, when you mentioned that if there's a pure devotee, uh, he or she would get the next body maybe instantly. Uh, and if someone has probably done certain sinful activities, they would go to the Yamaloka, and then there would be certain, they would be punished accordingly based on their karmas. So there are two connected questions that are running in my head right now. So one is like, if they're already punished there in the Yamaloka, once they come back to this world again, do they have to go through that, the the, uh, the result of their previous karmas? Will they have to, meet that again in this world because they have already, got the punishment thereafter?
They get punished for their karma, but they don't. Their desires still remain. So they're born again according to the type of desires they have in a family where that can facilitate that karma. The reactions of their sinful activities are nullified through the process of punishment. But that doesn't mean that their material desires are destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So your desires can only be destroyed by replacing them with spiritual desires. Punishment doesn't bring you to spiritual life. Punishment runs you away from material life, but it doesn't bring you to spiritual life. Spiritual life is voluntary. So that souls will take another birth according to their karma to pick up where they left off in the last life.
Got it, Guru Maharaj. And one more connected question, Guru Maharaj. So during the Shraddhas, we offer, obeisances to our ancestors. So, and we expect, or rather believe, that they would, take those offerings. But if they would have already got into another body, how would they accept those now?
Well, that's the power of that offering, the Strata ceremony. I'm not so versed in all the details. It says that, when you do offer, it's called pinda. When you offer pinda to the ancestors, that goes to wherever they are. That's the way it's described. That's all. There's a planet called Pitriloka. That means Pitriloka means those who worship the ancestors go to that planet when they die. For those who are ancestor worshippers, called Pitriloka. So the process is there, the Shraddha ceremony, but it's material, not spiritual at all.
Okay. So Pitraloka is also another sort of a material world.
Pitraloka, yeah, is a planet in the material world.
Okay.
It's not in the spiritual world, that's for sure. It's not even in between the material and spiritual world. It's still in the material world. There are innumerable planets, millions of them. We don't even know one small section of their names. Some of the planets are visible, some of them are invisible. The scientists can only see so many planets because they're using their eyeballs to see things. But there's a lot of planets that are invisible. But they're there. They're visible only on a certain level of consciousness. Millions of planets, millions of universes. Koti.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Koti means millions.
Yeah.
Amrita Nam.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, one more common question, but still I need a little clarification on that. When we chant, and when we chant in the mood of a doership mentality, how do we overcome that while chanting?
In the mood of what mentality?
Doership. Doership mentality. Doer.
Oh, I'm the doer?
Yes. Even being devotees, we think, I have to do this service, I have to manage this and that.
But you have to do it, so you are the doer. So nobody's going to do it for you. But you're not. The point is, you're being the doer doesn't mean you can bring about the results. That's the point. Krishna is called Karta. He's called the doer. The living entity in some verses is called Karta, which means doer. In some verses, it says the living entity is not Karta. So you'll find verses that are contrary. Some say Karta, some say not Karta. Prakriti kriyamanani guni karma. Prakriti kriyamanani guni karma. What is that verse? Prakriti kriyamanani guni karmi sarvasyaha ahankar vimuda mam kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the modes of material nature, thinks themselves the doer activities which are in fact carried out by material nature. So then you go to the chapter 17. It describes that all activities require 5 ingredients, and one of them is you. You're 1/5 of the activity. When you're not the whole activity, there is the endeavor, there's the time, the ingredients, and ultimately the super soul.
So Guru Maharaj, when say I get mood of doership, I should immediately humble down, thinking that I'm not the only doer.
Don't worry about that part. Just think that only by the mercy of the Lord will the results be satisfactory. The point is to understand we can't bring about the results. That's the main point. Just because we're doing something, it doesn't mean the results will come according to our desire. That's the point. You're entitled. What is that verse in the Bhagavad Gita?
Karmanevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhur mate stangos tvakarmani.
You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the results of activity. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activity, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Just do what you're supposed to do, that's all. And depend on Krishna for the results. Or depend on material energy if it's a material activity for the results. That's why, for instance, in the material sense, there's things called TTs, or auspicious times for performing certain activities, which will give a desirable result, such as getting married. I mean, the people look for these special TT times for getting married, and that means that will give that relationship an auspicious beginning. So there's TTs for everything. You might want to say something to somebody, but you have to pick the time, place, and the proper mood in order to say it to get the maximum effect of your desired result. So making it to think about doing it is one thing, but then again, there's so many other factors that make the result auspicious or desirable. Now, when it comes to devotional service, you can perform devotional service anytime. But then again, there are recommended times for certain activities. So we take the recommendations, which makes the activity more, what's it say? The activity becomes easier to perform when you perform it at the right time. In other words, you're supported by the environment, or you're supported by the energy around you. But these are subtle activities, that's all. But don't worry, just do it. Don't worry about being the doer or not the doer. Just do it.
The thing is, too much it interferes in the japa time. That is the main point. It interferes in the japa time. That is the main. Japa time.
What is the question?
It interferes during the japa time.
Well, is it required to allow the interference, or can you avoid it? If you can avoid it, it's best. If you can't avoid it, then just go ahead and do it and get it over with. Best to avoid it, though. Don't allow other things to happen during that time. But you're a mother, and you're a family person, so these things will happen when you're living in the home. So go hide in your room, lock the door, put the sign out. See you in 2 hours. That's all. If the world ends, don't bother me. I'm still going to chant my japa.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. That's a great idea. I'll do that.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be successful, and you'll be more popular amongst your family members also. Garangi Priya.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. If someone is suffering a lot, does it mean he or she has lots of sins?
Does he or she have?
She has lots of sins. If
I don't
someone
understand.
Has committed lots of sins.
Lots of sins?
Yes.
Yeah, either this life or previous lives. Yeah. Sin begins suffering. What we did in previous lives may also happen. You might get the results in this life. Although the person may not be sinful, they may be suffering from their sins from previous lives. Karma doesn't always come immediately. Depending on the nature of karma, that's all. So yeah, suffering is due to two things: sinful activities and ignorance. The child suffers because it's ignorant. The parent is there to guard the child, so the child doesn't have to suffer because of its own ignorance. because the child doesn't know better. So people suffer because they're ignorant of what to do and what not to do. If you don't think a fire will burn, you think it's a nice little bright little colorful, dancing display, and you decide to touch it, you'll get burnt. So therefore, you have to know. So ignorant, that's why we have so many books, we have so much discussion. This is to make you intelligent, so you don't fall into the category of being ignorant.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hari.
Good.
Thank you for your nice poem. That was nice. Thank you. I read it.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, Vrindavan Nath. Sri Devi, she had one turn. She has to wait until everyone else goes first. That's the fair play program. Second questions, wait until everyone else finishes their first question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, my question, in fact, I have two questions, but maybe I will go with one. This continuation of this Pitra Paksha, because this is a month which is actually dedicated for Shraddha. And my initial understanding was that devotees should not worry about Karm Kand like Shraddha ceremony.
Yeah.
But one of the Prabhu, Sanatan Dharma Prabhu, he is a disciple of Radhanath Maharaj, senior disciple. And he mentioned that everyone, including devotee, should offer Krishna Prasadam every year in this Shraddha month. So their ancestors are satisfied and can get spiritual benefit.
There's no harm in doing that. But generally, I mean, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also performed the Shraddha ceremony. Just to give example. But yeah, there's no harm in doing it. And if there's some benefit, then fine. But if you become a pure devotee, then your ancestors, 14 generations prior to you, wherever they are in that life, they'll leave, when they die, they'll take birth in a family of devotees. Doesn't matter who they are or how sinful they are, they'll get a devotee birth in the next life. By the power of your Krishna consciousness. So that's how we benefit our ancestors. We elevate them through our own practice of Krishna consciousness. But it doesn't hurt to do the Shraddha ceremony. I won't disagree with Sanatan Dharma's idea.
Sure. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Maharaj, there is one question from Scarlett Mataji in the chat. I'm going to read it. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Prabhupada. Mataji is saying that whilst reading, she came across a word called Sankhya system of philosophy. And just to understand, she reached out for more explanation, which led her to read that as long as we are interested in the material, we will not get liberation. Is that mean our body or health?
Does that mean what?
The question she's asking is that she read that as long as we are in the material body, we will not get liberation. And her question is that the meaning even our body or health?
Well, how would you not get liberation? Those who qualify for liberation will get liberation. if you're liberated, you can't get liberation because you're already liberated. But if you're in a material body, you can get liberation.
So, Mataji, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, liberation.
Please forgive me. I mean, just because I'm taking care of my health and my body, does that mean that I am showing interest more in the material or not?
Prabhupada instructed us to take care of the material body. But then again, there is, it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is 22 ways by which we can fall into sense gratification. 22 categories of sense gratification. And one of them is health directives. There are people who get so caught up in their health, they focus on that only. A devotee will do the minimum or the necessary just to keep the body going and take precautions, take medicines when they get sick or whatever. But they don't make it a focus. They do it as because it needs to be done. That's all. But take care of your body, but it doesn't mean, polishing the car all day,
No, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Sri Devi, you're back in action.
My humble obeisances again, Guru Maharaj. Again, on this point of mystic powers, that the devotee gets these mystic powers, then if those powers are given to that devotee, then using all those powers for Krishna's service is the only way to escape the trap, correct?
We don't use them.
Oh.
Devotees don't worry about using mystic powers. They just do their service.
Okay.
But if there is an emergency, just like someone will try to do some harm to a devotee, and then by the power of that devotee, he can, even if that person is, 10 times more powerful than he is, he can escape that by his own mystic power. Krishna will fuel that. Krishna is there. He's Yogeshwar. He's the master of all mystic. One who's connected with Krishna in devotion has these mystic powers, but they're only used in what we call those times that they're required, not in regular times.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah. Prabhupada did, sometimes he used some mystic powers because he needed to do that. But he didn't do it as a regular thing.
Thank you, Mataji.
Rasavilasini Radha, she had a second question, right?
Vrindavan Nath Prabhuji had, but yes, if you had as well, Mataji.
I think she was waiting.
Okay, so yes, Mataji, if you can ask your question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I had a question from the day before yesterday, Purport 2.2.19. Like it is written in the purport that the well-situated self or Brahman self-realized souls perfectly understand that the Supreme Brahman or the personality of Godhead is the all-powerful Vasudeva and that he is a part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. This means that those who are Brahma realized are called like Brahmavadis, Maharaj.
Only those who worship the Supreme Brahman as their goal, they're called Brahmavadis. We're all Brahman, that's us. We're Brahman. But those who worship the Supreme Brahman as the goal, they're called Brahmavadis.
Mm-hmm.
You're Brahman, I'm Brahman, we're all Brahman. Brahman means, spirit.
That's different from Mayavadis? I'm sorry, just butted.
Well, the Mayavadis also worship the Brahman, but they think they're God. They think they're the supreme Brahman, and rather than the part and parcel Brahman. They think that, by worshiping and performing the austerities, penances, chanting mantras, and doing whatever else they do, they can attain themselves as becoming the supreme Brahman. They say Brahman cannot be divided. There's only one Brahman. What is that? Ekadvija Nasti? And what is that statement they make? Ekadvija Nasti, I forgot. That Brahman cannot be divided. But Brahman is never divided, but there is the Supreme Brahman, and then there's us who are part and parcel of that Supreme Brahman. Therefore, we're never divided, but for the sake of loving exchanges, there is a relationship between the jiva and the Supreme, and that is called bhakti, or loving devotion. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana masastani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. That the living entity in the material world is my part and parcel, and he is sanatan. That means he's eternally part and parcel. Not that he becomes Brahman, or not that he becomes the supreme Brahman. The Mayavadis think by performing all of these spiritual activities, they become the supreme Brahman. They don't see any difference between Brahman in any aspect. They don't accept the personality of Godhead. They say personality, when Brahman accepts personality, he does that for the sake of activities. So they say Brahman is higher, and personality is just an acceptance by Brahman for the sake of activities. That's all. They chant the holy names of the Lord, but they chant the holy names to go beyond the holy names into the supreme absolute Brahman. So they're all rascals. They twist the Shastras all around just to. They're envious of the Supreme Lord. Mayavadis are envious. And that is their decoration. They're completely envious of the Lord. They don't want to serve the Lord. They want to be the Lord. I met so many Mayavadis. I've been with conferences with Mayavadis, and they're all so arrogant. So arrogant.
Thank you.
Is that good, Bal Krishna? You got that one? Bala, did you get what I said?
Yes. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you. Yes, I absolutely got that. Any chance I can follow up slightly?
Yeah, when you see